afternoon. Welcome to the workshop meeting, City of Delray Beach, here on May 14th. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Markert?
I'm here.
Mr. Long?
Here.
Ms. Cassell?
Here.
Ms. Burns? Here. Mayor Carney?
Here. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Thanks, I was going to sing national anthem. I was going to say national anthem, I was going to sing.
No, please don't.
Right, but we clear the room that. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We have two items on the workshop agenda. I'm going to ask Mr. Moore to please introduce them and make comment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So as the Mayor just mentioned, two items are before the City Commission for workshop meeting discussion purposes. First, concerning the Delray Beach Downtown Development Authority, we have illustrious board members in attendance along with staff and leadership of the organization. And this presentation was somewhat committed during the May 3rd goal setting session, a little less than 2 weeks ago, in which we talked a little bit about guidance and considerations regarding the Crest Theater building, of which there had been some consensus to continue the working relationship with the Downtown Development Authority relative to other aggregate areas of the Old School Square campus. Likewise, in 2023, the City of Delray Beach entered into an interlocal agreement with the Downtown Development Authority for operations and guidance in that regard. However, later in the year, direction was offered that the Crest Theater building would be a separate piece of direction and consideration, for which a special meeting will take place a week from today to consider opportunities regarding that particular space based on last week's guidance, and we very much look forward to that. Likewise, the Downtown Development Authority Board and staff leadership recently spent time amongst themselves to address their thoughts relative to a path forward pertaining to its existing relationship with the City of Delray Beach. Interestingly enough, during the week of goal setting session, the agreement that was first executed in early 2023 transitioned into a 5-year opportunity effective May 1st of 2024. Nevertheless, it's important to underscore that there does exist a 6-month or 180-day out for either party to exit the agreement in the event that either party decides to proceed in another direction. Nevertheless, for all intents and purposes, we are working collaboratively with the Downtown Development Authority pertaining to the Old School Square campus outside, separate and apart from the Crest Theater building, inclusive of the Cornell Arts Museum, and that's been a hallmark feature, as I think a number of people in the community have come to recognize. Likewise, this is an opportunity for a brief yet substantive dialogue with the Delray Beach Downtown Development Authority, its staff, so that the City Commission can achieve a sense of alignment with respect to expectations and outcomes. With that, Mr. Mayor, that is where we are. And again, as facing all of us, illustrious board members of the Downtown Development Authority, staff and leadership in the front row right behind these ladies and gentlemen, and of course, here at the dais, here we are.
Thank you very much for taking the time to come in and make this presentation to us this afternoon. Laura, do you want to introduce your board and
Thank you.
start the presentation?
Yes, I would love to. Thank you, and thank you for having us here. Thank you for the introduction, Mr. Moore. First of all, I'd like to introduce our board, and our team is here as well. We have Brian Rosen, who is our chair in the middle. We have next to him Cole Devitt, who is our secretary, Mark Dinkler, our treasurer, Christina is our vice chair, Godbout in the back.
Sorry, we didn't have enough chairs. I apologize.
Next to Aaron Halliburton, a board member, and Vera Woodson, also a board member. So, and then our team here, we have Mariska Gatto, Liliana Fino, Victoria DeSilvio, Alex Cosenza, and Suzanne Boyd here in the audience here for support. So we did put together just a brief presentation just to bring our new commission up to speed, and also the public, just kind of where we are, what's been going on for the past, I guess, 18 months now, and just to start the dialogue. Our board has also, there are some other things that, they have been working, as we've been working this past year, that they have some recommendations that they might want to bring up as well, as part of this conversation, since we have some time together. So, but one was just to start real quickly and bring you up to speed. As their city manager mentioned, kind of how we started back in August 21, when the lease was terminated. In October 2022, the city and the DDA held a workshop, and the city commission tapped the DDA to manage and program the center of our city, which is Old School Square campus. November, we entered in the ILA and opened up the Cornell Museum with Mariska's leadership in December 2022. And we wanted to get the Cornell open right away because it's on Atlantic Avenue facing our main street. In February, our ILA began with the city to start producing and programming the events on the campus with the amphitheater. Managing the private events started in April. The city Parks and Recreations team was managing that and producing events there. We assumed in October of 2023 the management of the Vintage Gym. Why the DDA? We just want to remind you that the DDA is the Downtown Development Authority, and economic development and economic vitality is our focus, and it is in the heart of our district. Old School Square is the heart and historic hub of and a cultural hub of our community, bringing dollars back into our community, and when it's quiet and closed, it's a negative impact. Again, the interlocal agreement, as was described earlier, we did have the automatic renewal for 5 years, which now, as we are at this space, gives us a longer runway. This year has moved really fast and quickly as we've been putting things together for activation. So phase one, we jumped in to change the narrative to make sure that we were communicating out there that Old School Square was not closed and back open and building and bringing the team together and filling in the gaps. Bringing to life the Cornell Museum. It's a art museum, a fine art museum, and over the past year Mariska has had 12 exhibitions in there with almost 200 artists, bringing hundreds of people into the museum on a weekly basis. Activating the entire campus with focusing on summer program. That was our initiative coming in, obviously, with a strong force in April. Looking at summer was a big gap to be filled, and we took it hard, and a time that putting things together, bringing concerts back, activating the space, bringing the community back downtown during the summer was our huge focus for us, and we did had a huge results there, almost activating every day of the month. It seemed like every month. Complete campus takeover in October, that meaning taking over the gym and also managing all the inquiries for events and activations, creating our own events in there, and really making that part of the campus be integrated into the whole space. The big superhero part of this is what we have. Our superpower is marketing at Old School Square, and coming into this, and the challenge we had was changing the narrative and creating all new marketing assets and websites and social pages, just because the others wasn't available, and it was very confusing for the public to know that anything was happening there. So our goal was to do that. So creating all emails, websites, infusing into PR, really to get the message out to the community that things were happening at Old School Square. Here is the numbers. So with that, 250,000 people on the grounds throughout the time, 138 events, over $100,000 in revenue that came back in. Donations that were coming in through the museum mostly. Impressions are media impressions, 3.5 million. Website visits, 103,000. Media value, which is almost $10 million. And our economic impact is $5 million. Those are huge numbers, just with a very fast ramp up for us. So that is bringing back to Delray Beach. So bringing back, obviously to Old School Square, but it is, having Delray Beach on the front page of the newspaper for events throughout the summer is a tremendous effort from the team. So kudos to everybody. Phase 2, we're jumping into we've had obviously there was a rebrand that was part of our plan. We've been going through that with the city partnership there to launch, and we'll be bringing the full brand story and brand to you all in June. But keeping the campus active, launching the permanent brand will be in phase 2, and building a strategic plan, a sustainable plan for the future. This is some estimates of costs going into the year ahead. 2025 marks our 100th anniversary for the Crest Theater and the Vintage Gym. So with that is going to be an effort for us to really celebrate a centennial celebration and be a great fundraiser effort for all of us in our community to celebrate this special place. This obviously doesn't include our grounds and the campus itself. When there's not activations happening, it does need to be maintained pristine and be a beautiful focal point for people to use and relax and enjoy, whether there's something happening there or not. So with this, that just kind of gives you a snippet quickly of the great work that our team has been doing and our board's leadership, both past and present, for this in partnership with the city. This is definitely not just the DDA effort. It is a community effort, a city effort, Parks and Recreation team, Public Works, everyone that has jumped in to help support bringing the place back to life. And I just wanted to leave this presentation piece with one special thing that we just heard is we are a member of the International Downtown Association and have been for many years, and this year we submitted this effort as public space management for a Downtown Achievement Award, and we won. So the city
Congratulations.
won this effort, and it's not just a little paper award, it's a trophy. So we're looking forward to bringing that home. So that's good news. And for us, it's we jumped in here. We it's a huge part of our community. It's been a huge part of our community for a very, very long time. And I know Vice Mayor was part of the process at the beginning, but something needed to be done. And our team has great experience, and our board was really supportive. But how can we help? How can we help this become a place for everyone and continue to be that place? And that's something that I know that is a passion of our board and our team. But it needs attention and it needs direction, and we want to listen and hear how we're doing, what more can we be doing, and how do we work better together. And I can turn it over to our board if there's anything that maybe you want to add, or we can open it up for a discussion.
I'm fine. I'm actually very interested in hearing a lot more from our commissioners now that we're in the light. I don't have anything really to say. Does anyone else on the board have anything at this point before we open it up?
Yeah. Nope. No, I'm interested to see what your guys' view of the whole process is and where you think we should be sitting in this.
Well, that's what we're here to discuss. Who would like to start? Commissioner Long?
Sure.
I can always point to the extra. I mean, you got it.
I don't mind.
I just go last. That's all I know.
First of all, thank you all for being here. Thank you for the presentation, Laura.
Sure.
The $5.5 million economic impact, very impressive. You guys have been doing great work. And the Downtown Achievement Award, that's awesome. Well done. I guess my main question was just to try and get like an overall count of kind of where we're at as far as how much the city has given to the DDA for Old School Square since 2021. Do you have kind of like a running total, like ballpark?
So right now we are at 1.7. So
Okay.
that's from the first initial year was 1 million, and then set in this budget, this current year is another $1 million.
Okay.
So we're at that point right now, and continuing to look for ways to generate revenue, offset expenses with concessions, ticketed events, donations from the museum. Museum store opened up this year too, which is also bringing in some revenue. We do, again, continue to look at ways to grow that part of it, to really, and sponsorship. We could really, that's a big area that we have not been able to jump into. Again, we have great opportunities for sponsorship, and we really would love more.
Not to interrupt, I just want a clarification. The $1,570,000 that you posed up there for the.
Yes, that's for-
That's projected,
Yes.
that's in addition to the, okay, I'm fine. I just want to get
Yes.
my numbers straight. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
operating
I'm
and
Sorry, Commissioner Long.
annually.
No worries, that's all I got. Thank you so much.
Oh.
Sure.
Commissioner Casal.
Sure.
Right, the 1.57 is projected for the
Yes,
budget
yeah.
for the following fiscal period, which we're under consideration of
Correct.
soon. Thank you. The numbers are huge, and I want to say thank you. I'm down there all the time, and it's remarkably impressive. And I want to thank the staff. Your staff is amazing, and your board, because I was here in the beginning, and you took on something when we really needed you too. And I appreciate you because we were without any other considerations. And I know it was a challenge and outside of what you typically do, but you embraced it. The museum is amazing. People are so impressed with how the museum is running and the fact that it's free. Residents are enjoying it like they never did before, myself included. I love the yoga and all of the activity that is going on. It's remarkable and impressive, and I want to thank you all. And I think what you said is most important. You're doing such a great job, and you were just, it kind of was slung in your lap without any knowledge of how long you're going to be there, how far out can you plan, how much money are you going to have, because you can't really plan events at a place like that unless you have enough time to really look out and say, what are we going to do in 2 years? What are we going to do in 4 years? You and I talked about, can we get bigger shows in here, people with more prestige, if you will, and can we start earning some money? And that's definitely a possibility. So I'd like to figure out how we can work together to do that. I mean, one of the things that Laura and I discussed was the special events policy is slightly cumbersome when you're trying to plan out, and if there's a way that we can talk about that. I know you're smirking, I'm sorry. I know. I'm just saying this is the part of the discussion that we had. Also, with respect to the grounds, I know when I sat on the CRA, we had allocated, I believe, $500,000 towards exterior lighting and other things. I don't know. I feel like that has not yet been.
It has not been. Maybe Mr. Moore can shed a light on that.
No, that's for capital improvements at the Old School Square campus. We did highlight that via the current fiscal year proposed budget process, and so that's in position for that purpose. And Missy Barletto is in position to offer some specifics relative to what that might look like, but we did commit budgetarily
Great.
for that particular purpose. So I don't think that would align with any particular considerations regarding programming and the DDA's relationship with the city for the campus operation and events, et cetera.
Great.
So, in the current budget that we're in right now, do we have any money in the CIP for Old School Square?
The $500,000 I was just referring to.
Is currently in there?
Yes, ma'am.
How can we get it on the ground? How do we get the work activated to get that money utilized? Thanks, Missy. I apologize.
That's okay.
So we had been working with the former commission about different elements that money had been asked to be put into the CIP budget to implement elements of the Old School Square master plan. And we've got updated costs for the different things that were in the Old School Square master plan, and have some suggestions. But we need a workshop to sit down with current commission and see exactly what it is that which things that you're the most interested in seeing implemented. That plan, as you remember, had more than, in old dollars, about 2017 dollars,
Right.
had about $12 million worth of improvements. We've only got about 500,000. There are a number of improvements to the campus that could be made. Some of the things we've talked about are improved lighting along the front along Swinton Avenue, where it's a little bit dark
Right.
at night and people don't feel safe. And in addition to that, doing some kind of hardening of the surface on the Great Lawn to make it so that we're not consistently having to resod the entire lawn.
What do you
and
mean
make it-
hardening?
What we had talked about was replacing some of the grass with turf block, which are big concrete blocks that have openings in them for grasses that you plant in there, so the cars, when they drive across, are not crushing the roots, or when people are walking across, they're not crushing the roots of the grasses. So you still have green space, you still have the drainage, you still have the cooling effect of the greenery, but not necessarily the heat that comes up off of putting in concrete sidewalk. It's very attractive and used in a lot of different places.
So perhaps we could consider going forth with the lighting almost immediately, because I think that was something we talked about both at the CRA at one point in time, and then here as something that was kind of needed 2 years ago, really. If just throwing that out to my fellow commissioners. And then also, the anniversary is coming up, the 25, we have the 100th anniversary, which is exciting. And look, my vision, it's hard to say because I think you're doing such an amazing job, and I'm so impressed that I can't see how I could add except having maybe bigger names at the venue to start generating some funds. And then we would need to figure out how we're going to, how those funds would be utilized, perhaps going back out into the exterior, perhaps a portion of it going to that 1.57, because I think that would be great if we could do that. But I really just want to say thank you all because you're doing an amazing job.
Thank you.
Commissioner Burns?
And I echo the same thing. You guys are doing amazing jobs. I try to attend as many activities as I can, and I've enjoyed all of them. So kudos to you and your team and the board for the work that you do. I'm back on the 1570. Is that's projected?
Projected.
That's money that you have to find someplace, or so this is just a projected budget request.
Right.
Okay.
I think we're someplace.
Yeah,
Someplace,
I think,
yeah.
I figured that we were someplace
Well, it's- yeah.
along with this okay, I got that. Okay, just want to make sure that this isn't something, because I was looking at that 700,000 for events and concerts. I guess I just want to say that, as I said, that you guys have done an amazing job, and that that you keep a priority on events and activities that will benefit all citizens and businesses within the district. I think that promoting our minority and owned businesses, also the cultural events and spaces, creating and supporting the cultural events and the community spaces that celebrate the rich diversity that we have in our community, and making sure that stays a priority in your planning. Basically, that's it. And congratulations on your Downtown Achievement Award.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Markert?
Okay. As a former CEO and CMO in Fortune 5000 companies, I think winning an external award from an unbiased third party goes a long way. We can market that, and that's not easy to win. I'm sure there were hundreds of people that were competing for that award, and we won, and I think that's really meaningful. I think we've got a lot of momentum at Old School Square. I mean, we were kind of out of business for a while, and the events that my wife and I have attended down there, we've been to almost all of them, have been fantastic. Well attended, people are liking it, they're happy. Are we all the way to where we want to be? Nope, not yet, but we're going to get there. There's commitment from this group and from this group to make sure that we all get there. I know that. A couple questions, Laura.
Yes.
So just at a really high level, what is the easiest way to generate revenue?
So, well, the easiest way for us right now is through ticketed events, through concessions has been our big moneymaker, and sponsorship.
Okay.
But those are ticketed events are our way,
And
and name recognition. Even though we are having free concerts and different, there people are wanting to have more of an experience there. So we have really focused on creating an experience for people.
Okay. And I've got a lot of experience with sponsorships. Are there certain categories?
We have lots of
that-
categories.
Yeah, because I know from, well, you know, from our Office Depot days and other things, you know, we spent a lot of money sponsoring things that made sense for our business, and there's always big companies out there like Coca-Cola and Pepsi that if you give them the vending rights, they'll chip in with a lot of cash. So I definitely can help you with
That's great.
that list, and I'm happy to do it.
I think our challenge has been, just not to interrupt, but just our challenge has been this short runway. You know, we're planning
Yeah.
month to month on things and
Yeah.
not having a longer, we're late to the game.
Yeah.
So, and I think having, and also the team just focusing on producing versus out developing. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And there is sponsorship money out there. We just have to go find it, and we can do that.
Okay.
Done that in the past. I also want to commend you. The staff that you've built is second to none. They're unbelievably good, strong people. I'm so.
Thank you.
Every time I interact with them, I just smile. It's like amazing. I also want to thank the board. You know, I'm learning what boards are all about, and I know how much time you all are putting in, and I want to thank you publicly for helping us out here, and we obviously want to work closely with you and make this experience just perfect. That's the end goal. And then last comment is I agree with what Julie's saying about the lighting, and I know when you and I spoke yesterday or the day before, you had also mentioned painting, and those are two projects that we could get done more quickly than some of the other ones.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I'd like us to maybe, Julie, consider lighting and painting as being good targets. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank the DDA for stepping up because however we got here, and the DDA stepped up and really got us back, you know, creating some traction with the entire campus, but in particular the museum and certainly with the amphitheater and the outdoor entertainment, and most recently helping with the crest. I guess my overall view is that, and while I know it's not a lot of money, which is said, but it's still money that we are spending now that we didn't used to spend, and that's partially because we're not getting the grants, we're not getting the donations, we're not getting the sponsorships, which typically come through a not-for-profit, as you know, which is why you formed one, and these things may come, but in my ideal world, the DDA's job would be to continue to do what you used to do, and this additional task which you've undertaken and which you have done truly a remarkable job, considering that you started with a dark facility, has been great. But I like the idea of having a private, not-for-profit type of enterprise be in charge of the campus. Now, whether that's in component form, whether one's in charge of the amphitheater and the other's in charge of the crest and the other in charge of the museum, I don't know. Because I'm not positive it's the task of the DDA to be now involved with programming. But you've done, and I'm not diminishing at all anything anybody has done. I'm just not positive that it's what you should be, your vision should be a long-term vision in doing that. My view is you're almost like caretakers here, and you're helping us get back on our feet with the tax dollars that you're using, but that we should try to migrate towards the way that I would say with some kind of external group trying to run it and getting donations and doing the programming and doing this, because in most of these that I have seen, professional management is really a very, very important thing. And as talented as your staff is, and they are talented, they are not, and by the way, and I can say this for a while, for a lot of the groups here, they didn't really have the reach that I think that they could have had in order to have fully developed the campus even before all of this. So so that's my only thought. I mean, you're doing great work,
Right.
but I just don't want to give the impression that I don't think that it needs to revert back to some kind of a, as I said, I don't know whether it's going to be one organization managing everything or whether it's going to be one kind of an overseeing organization with separate contracts with different entities to do the amphitheater or do the theater or do the museum which has always been, the museum's always been the one, of course, where all the big donations came in, and that's something that we never want to lose control of. So that's really what I'm, kind of what I'm thinking. And I know you have trouble with sponsorship, and part of that trouble is probably because there's an uncertainty as to where you're going. So, which is why I'm trying to hold back and say, I'm not saying today, but down the road, that's kind of the way I think. Because these things are best left not being run by government, but being run by private, not-for-profits whose function it is to do all of this. So that's
Understood.
where I think.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. So just to be clear, the request for program year 2024-2025 coinciding with fiscal year 2024-2025 is $1.5 million, $1.57 million. Is that not the case?
That is a number we put in there because last year, as you know, we didn't have a budget request. It was already put into the budget for the 1 million. So we wanted to make sure at this time we brought in a number for you. We can go back and provide you with something more formal. I think we took the opportunity today for this discussion to provide you with that as our operating budget for the coming year.
Thank you, ma'am. And if I may, ladies and gentlemen, to continue. As you all are aware, the Office of the City Manager, Department of Finance, all departments are involved in fiscal year 2024-2025 budget considerations analysis so as to prepare for the initial workshop engagement with the City Commission to take place 4 weeks from today, Tuesday, July 11th. And frankly, that does contemplate a flat allocation for the Downtown Development Authority in this regard, which is a firm $1 million. And there had been some general expectations relative to creating some external support, sponsorship, whatever the case may be, over time. It takes a little bit of time to get to that place. So I would likewise like to have the opportunity within the next couple weeks or so to work with Ms. Simon and her team to strike a balance so that we can prepare adequately for the June 11th engagement as we consider the aggregate proposed budget process for the coming fiscal year. The formal proposed budget process for the formal proposed budget for the City of Delray Beach is to be presented in July per the budget calendar, details, etc. But the preliminary exercise, June 11th, will provide an opportunity for a City Commission to be oriented relative to expenditure and revenue forecast analysis and different scenarios so that you all can offer adequate policy direction. Given the current relationship with the Downtown Development Authority, we need to strike a balance in that regard. So with you all's blessing and support, I'll be making arrangements to visit with Ms. Simon, members of her staff, and of course ours, to do what we can to strike a balance and see what that budget may look like relative to specific line item details as well as opportunities for external engagement.
Fantastic.
I hear what you're saying, but I do think that it's important that we take into account their ability to raise revenues themselves.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, we can talk about putting in money.
Yes,
but
sir.
There's also going to be an obligation to do revenues. So, and maybe they should be reaching out to other sources to help with programming and things such as that in order to achieve some of this, because we have assets there which have the ability to generate cash.
Yes, sir.
I mean, in my ideal world, they wouldn't be asking for money, but that's not realistic, and I understand that. But so I just want to make sure that we're not just sitting there saying we're not expecting the DDA and whoever's doing that to try to generate revenues themselves to offset what some of these projected costs are going to be.
Of course.
If I may, Mayor, I totally agree with you. I've always felt that location should be generating revenue. And I think that the only issue we have is if we aren't engaged in a contract for some period of time, we're not going to give them the opportunity to get to that place. So I'm glad we're in a 5-year contract. And I definitely think, based on our discussion, that there are revenue generating opportunities there as well. And I just want to go back to the lighting. Are we in agreement then to proceed with that? I mean, today we should, if the money is in our current budget and it was allocated for that, I don't know why we wouldn't be doing that.
If it's already been allocated, I don't necessarily have an issue with it. But I do agree with what the mayor said earlier in terms of and I agree also that you guys have been an excellent steward for Old School Square. No one could have done better given the circumstances. It happened abruptly with no real plan, and you guys jumped in and really kind of really built something that managed to sustain that, some version of that cultural hub in Delray Beach, and it's crucial. But I do think we should be speaking in terms of a transition plan in the near future as we figure that out. But in the meantime, we got to do what's in the budget and continue to make these improvements that are needed quickly. So I'm fine with the Vice Mayor's proposal to approve the lighting for now.
Yeah, I mean, I have less of a problem when the money's going into the facility and helping the facility than I am when it's going into certainly the other aspects that I saw in the budget, because the facility, it's a city-owned facility.
Correct.
And I do understand our responsibility to keep that facility, operational.
Right.
So.
But it does take sweat to make things happen. So I
Yes,
just want to
I-
make sure that sweat equity is not free, volunteers are
I
helpful.
understand truly. No one is
So-
more appreciative of what you're doing here than I am. So
Sure.
But if I may go back, when you're talking about phasing out and whatnot, having that conversation right there somewhat halts their ability to go out and look for grants and look for sponsorship opportunities and look for future programming that will beget that money. So we have to agree that at a minimum, they have a 5-year contract.
I'm
That
not
if-
going to agree. I'm not.
I'm not saying you have to agree, but-
Components are going to change. I mean, we all know that the components may change.
I don't suggest that they don't. I just think you have to at least give them a period of time, 2 years. You can't ask her to program large concerts at that facility without saying you're going to be there in 2 years, or she's not going to be able to do it.
Well, I mean, much of what she could do, we would transfer to whatever the entity that would be picking up the ball.
Maybe, or maybe not.
Well, I mean, it takes a year at least to get a play in there. I mean, these things are booked a year and a
That's
half in advance.
precisely my point.
Right, but I'm saying that I think if there were successors, and I don't know, as I said, I don't know where we're going to be. I'm just saying that I think in the ideal world, government entities running places like this, I don't think achieve as much as a private entity.
I don't disagree with you at all. I just think in the meantime, the only way they can flourish is if we assure them there is a period of time within which they can do that.
Well, they have a contract.
Right, exactly. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor.
So, if I may, just to help conclude the matter, my office will be in touch with you in the next day or so to schedule time for myself, members of the Department of Finance, and you, pertinent members of your staff, so that we can strike a balance as we engage the realities of the upcoming fiscal year proposed budget. And that will take into consideration the feedback having been generated by the City Commission today, all of you. So I think I'm all set and squared away in that regard, and I look forward to working with all
Great.
concerned.
Did my board have any, looks like they have any.
Can I ask a quick question just to clarify?
Sure.
Did we agree that we were going to go forward with the lighting
No,
project?
that was just Commissioner
Yes.
Burns' thing, which is what I was going to ask. Do we have consensus on the
Did
lighting?
you get there before I
Yes.
did, Angel?
I did.
I'm sorry.
I'm
And
a
she
little
had the floor, and you were
quieter.
interrupting.
It's my fault.
Yes, Commissioner Burns, may I help you?
Well, I was just asking, did we get consensus?
I think we did
on
because
that?
Mr. Long said yes and Mr. Markert said yes, and I said
I
Mr.
think I'm
Market
fine
is
with- I think
asking
I'm
a
fine
question,
with
so
the
he didn't
lighting.
say yes yet.
I thought he said I
No,
wanted
he
to
didn't
do
say
the
I don't
yes
think we
yet.
need a
Thank
vote.
Or he
I
wouldn't
mean,
be
I think-
asking the question.
We can't vote anyway. This is
It wouldn't be a vote.
workshop.
And Mayor, just because you did bring up the revenues generated, the contract actually requires the DDA to provide, as part of their budget, a revenue sharing plan for the upcoming fiscal year. So that's actually built into the contract. So when they bring this budget forward to the commission, they will have to have some type of a revenue sharing plan with the city and how they're, that's going to be dispersed.
Okay,
So
which is
that'll
what
be-
I didn't see with the expenses portion. I didn't see the
No,
offset
so-
portion.
Well, it is a contractual obligation.
So, understood. Just thought I'd raise it.
So,
I have some follow-up questions if I can. Is it open for discussion?
Yeah, before, I would just like to give my official consensus, since I was asked if it was in the budget, then yes. Tom, you want to give your official?
Yeah, I completely agree with what you just said. I'm in favor of that.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry you beat me, but
That's
it's okay.
okay. No, we're not in a race.
We have consensus on the lighting.
Thank you.
You
Good? Yep.
if the commission has no objection,
No, I don't object
Go
at
ahead.
all.
Absolutely.
Mr. Moore, I just have a question for you. So this is the CRA budget, the 500,000. It says Old School Square campus activation, but it's more for capital improvements, or?
It's for capital improvements, as stated.
Okay, I think Laura did a walkthrough and looked at what needed to be improved to her, idea, and it had estimated costs, or no?
No, we had that. No, we didn't have estimated costs for that, but that's more capital. I think we do have some things that are, we've done walkthroughs with the city as well as our team that have things that can be immediate, short term, and long term.
Okay, so is that something we could provide to you guys? Because I mean, she's the one who's got the boots on the ground over there, and like she's dealing with everyone, all the vendors and stuff, to kind of give our idea what needs to be improved on this.
The Department of Public Works, pertinent members of the team, work collaboratively with all concerned. So the first step of direction is to support the consensus and guidance from the City Commission with respect to the lighting component. As we continue to engage beyond this dynamic of the program budget, revenue sharing opportunities, and that whole bit, there may very well become opportunities to review collaboratively.
Okay. And then just my personal opinion on this.
Just use your microphone.
Oh, sorry.
because I can't hear you.
Yeah, it's on.
Thank you.
Okay. If we want Laura and her team to succeed on this, Julie, I agree with you. We need runway on this. Like, it's not fair to say, it might get pulled in a year or two. They've put a lot of work into this. It's all kind of almost pro bono work. I don't think they're getting compensated very much for this, if any. They really care about the heart of Delray, which is Old School Square. And like we said, programming takes time on all this. Can't program with this 6-month horizon. I mean, and what's like the motivation on that too?
Right.
I mean, just to turn it over at some point. I mean, that's my opinion on this, obviously, but just wanted to get that off my chest.
Thank you very much. I think we all care about the heart of Delray.
Vera Woodson, or did you need to go, Mark? Okay. Vera Woodson, it's a pleasure meeting those of you that I haven't met, as well as those of you that I have met. I think I know more about many of you through the press than I do personally, so hopefully I can meet you one-on-one to actually form my own opinion.
If it's good, it's all true. For all of us, by the way. For
I
us,
will
not just me.
hold my peace, as we say in church. So I am going to echo what Cole said and voice concern that it sounds to me as if there are a couple on the dais that are looking to hand this over. And I was one of the first people, Ms. Casal knows that I was one of the first people that says the DDA needs to run this because I am very much about efficiencies. And it is a government entity, yes, but it is not a government department, a governmental department. Their job is to spawn economic development and to continue to be a catalyst for events in the city that drive people to come down to Delray and spend. And they've done a Herculean effort, a hell of an effort to market this city. People know us from coast to coast. Right now there is a voting going on with the USA Today. Delray is buoyed between first place and second place for the best beach in South Florida.
Yeah.
They've won international awards. I don't know of any other organization that can come in here and do the same thing that they've done in less than a year. So to have the conversation, even to say that the rug might be pulled out from underneath this team, really gives me pause. And I'm trying to remain positive because I keep hearing this as boards change and now the commission has changed, and I keep hearing these same kind of, baseline, hey, we need to turn it over. Hey, let's give it to a group. Hey, let's turn it over. Hey, I don't see them doing this. And because it's only been a year and a half, we don't know what they're capable of without the opportunity to prove it. So I would say let's give the 5 years, let's commit to the 5 years, and let's not have those discussions about pulling the rug out from underneath the team until they can show us what they can do. I, myself, and Laura knows this full well, would prefer that we also give the Crest Theater over to the DDA so that we have one organization that's running the entire campus, utilizing all of these things and stringing the pearls together. That is my wish. I have worked on both sides as a board member and now as a business leader. I opened a flea market on the campus and have seen the work on the opposite side with the team, who are a joy to work with. We laugh through everything, and they laugh at me because they only know Vera, the board member, and now it's Vera, the flea market owner. But they have the delicacy to make sure that everyone who comes into the campus is thought of as the only person. Like, they treat you as if you're the only person that matters. They really made an effort to make sure that the locals mattered, especially during off season, so that they'd have their own space, so they can mix and mingle, so they can bring in that vibe. And I think it's those special touches from people who understand who our community is that makes the difference. So I don't know if going and hiring an events team, I used to do events with Nordstrom, to hire an events team to come in and to start from scratch and do all of these, community like sit downs and what do you want? How does it feel? What do you think? And spend all the money and then still turn around and ask you for the same amount is the proper way to go. I just don't think that. But as a board member, I support this team and the direction that they've taken us, where we've been, how we've moved forward, and what we will do in the future. But I just want to make sure that we're not setting ourselves up to say in 3 years it's over, because that, like I said, gives me pause. Thank you.
I'll speak next. I think Julie and I just recently been appointed to the DDA, and Julie was on when we had the October meeting at Delray Dunes, the Delray Municipal golf course. Maybe Vera was there. I'm not sure, but we took it over because economic impact. Why DDA? Well, we're already downtown, foot's on the ground. We know how to market, and the key number, as you said, 5.5 million economic impact. That's a formula people know. We don't know the thing, but people are going to restaurants. They are doing things, coming to our events. But I look at all those things, and Maruska's done a fantastic job. I mean, we've had 13 different showings and things. So I mean, we're turning it over, trying to include people here. I know I look. I'm a finance guy. I was in investment banking beforehand, and you look and you're like, okay, we're 1.5 million. We're asking you to give 1.7, but in the past you were giving 500 to 900,000 already.
750.
750. So
this is
we're only giving 250 more just for programming for us. So I want you to take that into effect. The 5-year, if Tom, you look at any contract, you look at date of termination and the time you can get out. So when I first looked at it, I said, okay, it's 180 days. It's a 5-year contract, but beforehand, it's very difficult to go out to programming to somebody said, oh, in 2026 we want you to do a concert. We have to promise you $100,000 and we might not be here. We'll have to have that in the budget, and if somebody took it over, I've gone back and forth. I love running it, but I know it's tough to run. We could go, but you're not going to give us 180 days because it's going to take somebody longer to do it. So I'm not really worried as much as Vera on that, but that is something. If you do get the axe, you have to do it. One of my charges is when this came was to set up a nonprofit. We had the Pineapple Grove Main Street. We took over them, and I'm like, wait, let's do this. They were about ready to close it down. I said, hey, let's grab it, because it takes a year to get a nonprofit approved by the IRS. Well, it took us 12 months just to get it transferred. So we do have a foundation now. There's no employees or anything, but we're there to do that, to try to raise money. I've gotten some potential commitments for it, but that's something that you can do a grant writing from, and you can, because we all know if you want to give 50,000, 100,000, Mariska's telling me about somebody that might give, but it's like they want a tax donation for it. You don't get it if you give to the DDA for sponsorship. A person can do it. A company, it's an expense, and so it goes out. So we're there, and I'm a taxpayer, and so when I see you giving that money, and I can go to a free concert, I think we've had free concert, sell out, but we're turning people away. But so have our a few paid events. So I kudos to the staff. There's only 2 shared staff members, Laura and Suzanne. Otherwise, we do have staff working for DDA for Old School Square. So I think we're getting set up. But even that, getting staff was a while. So I think we're there. If things do come down, then we hand the staff over, whatever. But that was another thing. How do you? Hey, do you want a job to manage a campus and knowing you only have 180 days or something like that? I think we all know we're all going to do what's best for the organization and Old School Square. And I've said, when we set up the foundation, hey, if we raise it for you guys, it's for you guys. I'm not going to say I want it back because it's a leasehold improvement or something. It's for the city, and everything we do is for the city. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone else?
No, thank you.
I guess we're finished.
I'm all set, sir.
With this item? Thank you all for coming.
Great.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you
for
very
the
much.
presentation.
Mayor
Thank you for the
Carney?
comments.
May I note, we have some special guests in our audience. We have our local Delray Beach Lawn Bowling Club sitting back here. Gentlemen and ladies. Hi. Thanks for coming.
I couldn't see the shirts. I can now see them. So
You have to get out there and try it. It's pretty fun.
I've done boule in France, so I mean, I kind of know what that is. Okay, we're fine. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just give him a second.
I'm going to give it to everyone.
Sam's all dressed up.
You cannot compare the ability of a private board with people to raise money to a board comprised of the media. I mean, I love them, but you need to get the right private board with the each one to write a stroke a check for 10 grand. Just start with 100 grand, or even go after it.
Or they give you more lead.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I mean, I love it. But
Yeah.
I see you Friday.
Hey, man. How you doing? What's going on?
Treat me. It's going to be very important on Friday, Aaron. Huh?
Just a second.
Then we can always go to the Opal.
Oh.
You want a good meal?
Wow.
Hey, I'm a consumer. Having people for breakfast. You know.
Wait, don't we have a breakfast Friday morning? Oh, no, that's next Friday. Excuse me.
Do we have a breakfast?
Yeah, the police breakfast. Is
Oh, I'm not going. That's my brother's birthday, May 17th. I'm spending all day with him.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, the remaining item pertains to the Parks General Obligation Bond Project review and discussion. A commitment to this effect was offered during the May 3rd goal-setting session a week and a half ago at my behest and recommendation. Given the varied expressions of interest regarding the evolution of the Parks Implementation Program associated with the General Obligation Bond referendum that was approved during the March 2023 election, there's been some disconnect in terms of what our capabilities and commitments were and were not. Fortunately, since the May 3rd goal-setting session, myself, along with City Attorney Lynn Jellin, as well as Chief Financial Officer Hugh Dunkley, were able to confirm with Bond Counsel that there's a pretty solid degree of flexibility with respect to project implementation. I would like to see us move forward with some of the initial transactions, at least, so that we can get squared away in terms of the property tax bill and other considerations associated with this process. Nevertheless, this is the opportunity for the City Commission to offer a couple pieces of direction. Number one, specific thoughts relative to project implementation based on what was previously submitted relative to review and condition of fields, facilities, etc. And number two, ancillary expectations relative to community engagement so as to complete the entire puzzle as it relates to the $20 million possibility. With that, Director of Parks and Recreation Sam Mitat is here to provide some background information relative to the process evolution from fall 2022 when we first initiated the bond referenda, plural, public safety and parks during the City Commission engagement at the time, vis-a-vis what additional opportunities may very well become possible so that you all can provide appropriate feedback, guidance, and direction as we await that accordingly. Mr. Mitat, if you would, please.
Hi, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Sam Mitat, Director of Parks and Recreation. And as Mr. Moore just mentioned, I just wanted to kind of rewind a little bit back to the fall of 22 and just go through the presentation quick about what we were presenting as the potential parks projects through the bond process. As you can see, the presentation was done in conjunction with the Public Works Director, so we started with the public safety elements. I know a number of you are familiar with those. It was the police headquarters and the fire rescue. And then we got to the parks, and it was a much more involved discussion when we got to the parks, mostly because the police station is a singular unit, so it kind of was easier to follow. Whereas the parks bond was looking at a whole host of projects within it that it encompasses. One of the first projects we looked at was Atlantic Dunes Park. Just to start there, it was removed from the bond project because there's some concerns about the different trees and things there, but thought it was pointing to just bring up
that there's an entire plan out there that's on the books to redo this whole park if and when we ever want to revisit it or use that as a platform to move forward. But it was not included, right? So I thought it was important just to bring that up as part of this and make sure everyone knew that this was not included in the
Right.
bonds
Thank you.
project.
Am I correct that it was not included because by including it, doing a building permit, we would be forced to remove trees?
Yeah, the Australian pines.
The
is a
Australian
big
pines,
component. I
the
think there's
invasive
over 80 of them
species
there.
pine.
Absolutely.
Okay.
A very important clarification, Mr. Mita. We were getting a little nervous. up there.
I saw Lynn's reaction. I just wanted to start there and just to clarify, like, again, from the beginning it was, and then it was removed for the reasons.
I just was trying to remember why it was removed, yeah.
The next big project we looked at was an entire park renovation to Catherine Strong Park. And one of the reasons we looked at this is we looked at the city as a whole and a number of the playgrounds and facilities that we were already improving, plans that are already in the process, like Pompey Park that we know of. So what would be the next future park project that would be encompassed, and Catherine Strong kind of fit that bill. One of the things that we've consistently heard from the community year after year is that there's a need for an additional practice space for our youth sports programs, especially in the Northwest Southwest. And currently, Catherine Strong does not have one. If you're familiar with the park, there's a big open space walk trail, and the grass area in the middle is kind of unused, and it would be an opportunity to retrofit that into an artificial turf. That artificial turf, we presented with an option to put a cover over it. The cover allows you to use it even during inclement weather, all summer long in the shade, provides a number of opportunities to do things, not just athletics. We can have concerts or movie nights, different gatherings, summer camps. So it really gave us a flexibility on that field where practice never got rained out or your events never got rained out. So it was a unique opportunity to look at that. And then also take the current basketball courts that are heavily used there and put a cover over there. Again, extending the usefulness of those courts, especially in the summertime when it rains each night. They might dry out, they might not, right? That's the biggest time where you really lose the court space. If next to Catherine Strong Park is a retention pond area. It became a big point of discussion over the years when we've looked at the different Village Academy renovation plans and whether or not we could encapsulate that and move an athletic field over there. And it's a very costly, very expensive process to be able to encapsulate retention pond area and then build upon it. So what we're looking at is the walking track and open space that you would lose where the artificial field goes would now work perfectly and extend that park. You almost double the size of the park. If you picture Barwick Park, that's always my reference. When you walk into Barwick Park, there's a huge bowl, but it's part of the park. That is the retention area as well. So you kind of rebuild that at Catherine Strong and really, that way you're not even losing a walking track or the park space. You actually double the open space. And then other enhancements to the park in and of itself, the splash pad itself it's a huge asset to the community. It's a great place for kids to play all summer, but even if they can't swim, right? And that's an important element. Just to make it a little bit bigger and a little newer, it's a little long in the tooth right now with its operation. And then a small building. If you're familiar with the park, there was an old building that was shut down many, many years ago in the northwest corner. It's been removed. All those old modules have been removed. And in this plan, we would build a small employee, a couple staff offices, but more so a small meeting room, something in the size of maybe Veterans Park, where you could have some small programmings in a meeting room and on that. Collectively, we projected this to be the $8.5 million project. And I know there were some questions about the cover. I was asked at the goal setting to get some pricing on the covers themselves. Each cover, obviously size of each one is a little bit different, but approximately $700,000 would be the cost of one of the covers in and of itself. So
You're talking about for the pickleball court, or you're talking about for that field?
each one, so you got one, there's 3 projected in the bond, 2 here at Catherine Strong, 1 for basketball, 1 for the athletic fields, and then 1 for pickleball. Give or take, that's why I said each one's got a little bit different dimension,
Okay.
but you're looking at around $700,000 for those covered facilities.
Well, $1 million installed. Go ahead.
Yep. So that's the Catherine Strong project. Did you want to go through all the projects? You want to go each one by one? Is there a preference?
I think you should just make your presentation, and we can
Fair enough.
come back to the slides we want to come back to.
Perfect. The next moves us to what you just referenced, was at Miller Park. What we're looking at is when the fire station leaves Miller Park, the fenced-in fire station, we would retrofit that area, which again, that fire station's been there for a number of years now. We do very, very well without those parking spots, so it would be a great opportunity to turn that into outdoor pickleball courts that would have a cover, and again, offer another element where you never lose downtime for weather and other items. Uniquely, it's a great option as well at that location because there's a concession stand right there on the big field, and it could kind of dual purpose for bathrooms and concessions, and you really have a nice facility right off the bat. So that would be the Miller Park enhancement. And then other park improvements. And we didn't get into specifics here because these are a lot of things that, for example, we looked at restrooms. Well, there's almost 50 bathrooms throughout the park system, right? So we don't want to just list all 50 parks. But the entire public restrooms, as many of you know, they need a little love, right? Which is probably being nice for some of them. Citywide restrooms, sports lighting is a big topic that we would like to enhance. We're running on some very old bulbs at a number of our parks, retrofitting them to the LEDs, and then other facility improvements. And one of the things we've talked about quite a bit is shade features, whether that's shade over bleachers, shade over playgrounds, different ways to bring in shade to your park systems, and believe it or not, pavilions. So a pavilion that we're very familiar with our parks, they're rather expensive. They can range from $50,000 to $100,000 per pavilion, and you have about 30 of them throughout the park system. They're all about 20 years old. So we've been replacing them one by one. You guys have been very supportive of that through the capital improvement process. But again, you can imagine how long that's going to take one by one, whereas the bond would give you the chance to switch out a number of them in the number of parks. And that kind of encompassed the whole of the parks bond general project scope.
So given these considerations, the capability to proceed with the portion of the allocated or anticipated allocated outcome is possible and available. However, as I clarified at the beginning of the presentation, there is flexibility in this regard because there was an initial commentary or misgiving that these needed to be defined very specific as part of the first series of transactions. That's not entirely the case. So again, a clarification having just been achieved, an email communication was shared with you all earlier today to support that sentiment and direction. Nevertheless, there is merit to proceed with the portion of projects in a timely manner, yet at the same time, you all should be pleased to know that the ability to create an environment for public input and engagement does in fact exist relative to additional improvements to be made available via last year's general obligation bond referendum outcome.
I know that I'm the cause of all of this because at our first meeting together after I was elected, I raised the issue about all the covered pickleball courts, the covered fields, and all this. You know, I grew up in Florida. We had rain days that we couldn't play. We're suggesting doing improvements, covered fields, which they don't even do at some universities, and certainly some of the best endowed high schools don't even have this. So I didn't see why I would want to spend $4 or $5 million by the time everything is said and done to install these features when that money could be used to improve all of the parks in the city. It's certainly nice to be able to say, look, we have a covered field here, but if it costs me $2 million, it costs the taxpayers $2 million, I'm not sure that's the best use of the money. So I raised the issue early on, because I feel that the money could be better spent with other improvements in all the other parks. I mean, for heaven's sakes, let's be honest. I know the golf course isn't involved, the beaches didn't get involved, and Anchor's not involved. But you know, we're sitting here talking about spending $3 million to cover pickleball courts and a football field, and we've put no money into the golf course. Now, I understand the golf course isn't part of this, but it's a mentality that I have problems with. So I just don't see the need to spend that kind of money. It's a lot of money, and I'm glad we can phase it. And I'm glad we don't have to say today this is what we're committing to, all these things. And I'm just one voice up here, but it seems to me that's an awful lot of money. I mean, we live in Florida. Shade's great, but you know, we live in Florida. We've all had rain days. We had great times when we get rain delays, by the way, particularly if it was in school and it was a recess event. But, you know, that's my problem, is the amount of money we're spending just on covered fields. It's not on the other improvements. I mean, the other improvements that you've described are great. I mean, I'd like to see a little more at Merrick, as we've discussed, to fix that block so that 6 or 8 football teams can do half football fields there and can play. But
You actually, just to carry off, we've talked about that. That was part of this discussion as well. It just wasn't in the original presentation, and that was part of it, is some artificial fields, and merit could be an easy consideration and would work great. And there is miscellaneous monies for under the other facility improvements, and we also looked at an artificial field at Hilltopper Stadium as well. Again, you get so much more usefulness out of that back because you don't have to shut the field down.
So anyway, but that's my view. So, but I give it to you to.
I have a question. I know we live in Florida and we have these things called hurricanes all the time. If we were to put covered facilities up, is that going to drive our insurance costs way up?
I mean, they're a permitted facility just like any building. I don't do the insurance side. I don't think that's the case, but I can't speak to the specific on that.
I don't know either. That's why I was asking. Don't know. Terrence, maybe you know.
That would be covered under the city's general liability policy, so there may be a tweak in that regard. Analytically speaking, I don't anticipate a tremendous outcome in terms of an increase, but some level of adjustment is potentially likely from an actuarial standpoint.
I mean, it costs money to insure a structure as opposed to a vacant lot.
That's what I thought.
There would be economies of scale, however, given the fact that the general liability policy covers all municipal facilities and components of operations in that regard. Thus, my emphasis that there would be some level of a tweak, and that's really the result of the economies of scale that are applied into that overall consideration from an actuarial standpoint,
Okay. Thank you.
generally speaking.
Thank you.
Mr. Long.
So my concern is, how do we ensure that after this meeting, we're still moving forward and we don't miss that cutoff to make sure that we're in this budget cycle? As we all mentioned, this is going to be phased, and we don't necessarily have to address the very legitimate concerns that the mayor brought up right now, correct? So we can still, basically by consensus, say we're still going to keep moving forward with that first phase that won't necessarily impact whether we are or aren't going to build the covered structures, right?
Yeah, I think we don't. I think we as long as you said there's a flexibility in the bond language, so that we still have the ability to pick and choose which ones we want to do, then I certainly don't want to lose this budget cycle.
Our bond council confirmed that we're
Yes,
not
ma'am.
limited on the improvements, but we do need direction to just keep moving forward because we were gonna put out the information by the end of the week. Everything has been finalized.
But we're not specifically we're not within the information. We're not, line iteming what we're planning.
That
to
is
do.
correct, sir. You
Okay.
do not have that obligation today. We can still proceed. And frankly, after this discussion, our interest is to secure your consensus to continue moving forward while we develop an opportunity for public engagement, as well as to formulate specific recommendations based on the feedback that's being offered this evening.
You have my support on that
And
front.
even if we did outline certain projects, because the money it's a finite amount of money, you're not gonna be able to do everything that you wanted to do. You're gonna be fine if you decide not to do the covered areas, whatever you decide. But right now, we just need to get the information posted so that we can issue those bonds and get that process started. And that
Right.
would be done within this fiscal year or the next one.
Because you did point out, I mean, I
We're not
would
gonna
at some
be
point
delayed.
like to get some of the public engagement to what they would like to see in their parks, which is what I
We
said.
we
from
can
meeting
create
one.
that opportunity.
From meeting one.
Yep.
I was going to agree with that as well. I'd love if we could plan some kind of public engagement type, whether it's a town hall or a charrette or something. Maybe we can hear kind of how the public feels about some of these plans, and that'll help direct us.
We'll
That's
have
a good
that on
idea.
an off Tuesday.
Yeah, I think when we talked at the goal setting, when I mentioned there's some parts of this that we can get off and running very, very quickly with. For example, sports lighting is simply contractual approval, restrooms, et cetera. Those are not long-range planning. Even if you said 100% do everything at Catherine Strong right now, we're a couple years out in the planning and architectural build out and everything. So there's definitely a phased and timed approach that I think works well on both sides of that for all of those different projects.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes, I'm just in support of going ahead with the major projects and whatever it is to keep us going, but also very much so in support of the public output, because I think there was very little or very limited amount of that done when this bond was put on the ballot. I think we got more informational type information because people didn't know what the bond was about. So as far as input as to where the money's going to be spent, that was very limited unless you based it on previous years' input. I heard you say that there were some previous years' input over the years, people that said, but I know that when this bond was placed on the ballot, people didn't know what in the world they were voting on. So we had a couple of 3 or 4 informational meetings, but very limited input as to what they want to see in their community. So I'm in support of input for these different communities for these parks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Casal.
Thank you. I agree with Mayor Carney. The idea of putting did you say 5? Was it 8.5
Whatever,
million?
whatever.
Yeah,
Some
it
millions of
seems
dollars.
excessive, and I like the shades over the playgrounds. If we could have that in every park, that's amazing. Lawn bowling. You and I, we talked about this at goal setting, and I think all of us who filled out a form for the Preservation Trust saying we wanted to preserve the lawn bowling. So I was there. You and I talked about now the Lawn Bowling Club and the Preservation Trust feel that location needs to stay because it is potentially historic. So I'd like to see money go into that. I was there. It's really, you can't use it. A section of it you can use.
My only thing is I think Lynn wants to.
Yeah. I don't know if we're going to be able to use it for that.
I'm not sure that was included within the scope of
It
the
was not.
use of proceeds.
Oh,
we
sugar.
have
It's not
city-owned
considered
parks.
a park?
It's considered a park, but even though we left it very broad, we are still somewhat limited by what was advertised to the constituents during the process.
Understood.
And so I can tell you with
Can
certainty
we look
that
into
was,
it, or you
well,
think
I'll
it's
look
not?
into it, of course.
Thank
but
you.
I can tell you with almost complete certainty that Veterans Park wasn't even discussed. It was more these other parks that Sam already mentioned.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'll look into it. I'm happy to, but I
Okay.
know our bond counsel is going to say that because it wasn't even publicly discussed in any way, shape, or form,
Okay.
that we're probably not going to be able to use the proceeds for
So that begs a question, if you don't mind. So in light of the fact that we might not potentially be spending the $8.5 million, one of the things that you and I have discussed for years is Barwick Park. It's near my house, but I have a pool. And most of the kids that live in the Shadow Lane area and the surrounding that park do not have pools. In the summertime, they have no access to, any kind of a facility locally. Would be really amazing. And there's the way that place is. It's so easy to implement a splash pad for the kids. I wouldn't mind seeing the parks in the areas where the kids don't have pools, and we know what we're talking about economically. If we can incorporate some water element into those parks so that the kids can have something during the summer. I don't know, because Barwick Park, again, was not included in that, but if we can go and do improvements to the bathrooms and like that, I would imagine that we could. Say that again, I'm sorry.
No, just to support the sentiment you offered. So part of this does include additional opportunities above and beyond what was discussed as part of the presentation, even going back to September 22nd, 2022. So likewise, as we engage moving forward in that regard, that could be evaluated as well, because the commitment has always been to touch various areas of the city geographically.
Right.
So that would qualify.
And I think that the best way we could touch these areas of the city is to provide the kids something pretty amazing, and I think a water element would do it. And I don't know if everybody's on board, but again, I'm looking at the areas where the kids might not have as many resources. And then my last question is, how many pickleball courts were you planning on putting in at Miller Park?
I think we were estimating that we could get 10.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Absolutely.
So I think we have consensus here that we want to move forward with the bond, that we are going to have the opportunity to look at, again, which parks are actually going to be funded with the proceeds, but that we don't want to slow up the issuance. We want to make sure it gets there, because we have to get it into the budget by Friday for purposes of the millage calculation. And are you going to be using this schedule in part of the millage calculation? I have a schedule here that you had for the 382 rec bond. You're assuming 23-24 we're going to be 4,000,005, 24-25 3, and then 25-26 is 10. So you're going to have the millage reflecting for those numbers.
The entire $20 million allocation, Mr. Dunkley, you can talk about specifics, but if I may just to summarize briefly before Chief Financial Officer Hugh Dunkley approaches you all. Given the feedback and given the clarity that was achieved with Bond Counsel earlier today, the recommendation is to go ahead and proceed with the $20 million transaction process because nothing is compromised. I will work with Mr. Mitat and his team to create a series of public outreach engagements so that feedback can be offered, and that will enable us to come back with more definitive recommendations as to what the program will look like.
I guess I just don't want to be including millage for funds which we will not have drawn yet.
Mr. Dunkley.
Yes, that's a good point, Mayor. As a matter of fact, we could split the issuance. We could issue a portion, say $10 million in this fiscal year, and then an additional $10 million next fiscal year, so that we were not sitting on idle debt. We're not servicing debt for which we're not using. So we could split the transaction in that regard.
Yeah, I just want to save the taxpayers when I can.
Precisely. You have a very good point.
We don't really have
I'd
public
like to
comment.
just say that Barwood Park is there because of me.
Yes.
So if you're setting up a committee, I would like to be on the list, at least for Barwood Park.
Thank you, Ms. Vince. Any other questions for anybody up here?
So that's something we probably need to get consensus on, is do you want to split the issuances? Do you want to do the full amount? I know what the mayor thinks, but.
I just don't want to have my
No,
tax
and that
people
makes
for money we're
sense.
not
And
using.
a lot of these things are very long-term, so, it doesn't have to all be allocated right now, but we need to be able to tell the bond council and the financial
So
advisor.
you're suggesting the split? Split?
Yeah, I mean,
I
they'll do
agree
a
with
bond
that.
purchase agreement that'll include one half 1 year, one half 10, but we only have to worry about the millage as it relates to this year for the first portion, and next year, unfortunately, we'll have to do the other portion,
Right.
which would be what I would prefer.
I'm in favor of that as well. Thank you.
Will that affect the project timeline in any way as far as?
I don't think so.
I don't believe so.
I'm fine with it then. Yeah.
These are all
Nope.
capital improvement projects, so they're going to be long.
It'll take us a few years to accomplish anyway, so that doesn't impact it at all. So that's fair.
Sounds good to me then.
Right call.
Okay, so we'll complete this transaction process beginning tomorrow. We'll wrap up by Friday, 10 million of the $20 million opportunity. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you,
And
Sam.
we
Thank
will
you.
update you all in terms of what the public engagement effort will look like so that you all be advised accordingly. And that will be executed in the coming months, quite frankly, so that there's ample opportunity and time for our community engagement and participation.
Perfect. And then we can have the Angela Burns Park and the Rob Long Park and the, kidding. We're not dead.
No, nothing like that.
Okay. Any other thing? Any other thing?
No,
I have
sir.
a brief thing to bring up if we're done talking about this.
Yeah, we're done.
Cool. So as great as it is to see you guys every single week,
Oh, here it comes.
it's been like what 5 or 6 weeks in a row, and I think we have 5 or 6 more in a row. We're here, including CRA meetings and a retreat, whatever. Since we are starting meetings at 6 o'clock soon, maybe we could put the workshops starting at like 4, 5 o'clock, coming
We may
before
have
that.
to on some of the budget things. We may call for
Right.
extra workshops.
I think
That's
we
fine.
consolidated some of the workshops
already did
below
consolidate
the
some of them.
Okay.
to adjust our schedule.
Cool.
But
I
I
mean-
agree. I also think we need to talk about the workshops. We're throwing workshops together, and some of them I don't even like. What? Okay, I'm gonna try. I don't know how to say this. I'm gonna say this as nicely as I can. In the information letter, I think you had a conversation with Mr. Carney and then put a workshop together. And I don't know. Do we all need a workshop on the parking and the swales?
We brought it up at the,
It's my recommendation to do so. That's why I was included in the information letter report, because it's a bit of a long-standing issue. It goes back a ways in that regard. My recommendation, regardless of individual discussions I may have had with any particular elected official, if I offer a recommendation that necessitates that level of engagement, I'll report on it and I'll share with everybody. So that was the basis of that particular consideration.
Right. I think we're having a consideration on how to spend 200,000 for the litigation for the
Opioid.
yeah, excuse me, thank you, opioid litigation. I'm just seeing a lot of stuff on these workshops, and I feel like these could be resolved very easily.
And they will be resolved easily because since then, we talked about doing whatever we can to make it part of regular city commission meeting presentations,
Right.
engagements in that regard. And that's a team-oriented engagement with the Office of the City Attorney, other members of the executive leadership team to do that as much as possible. Some cases do warrant an actual workshop meeting discussion,
Right.
such as today's exercise, whereas where other opportunities that are possible, and I've spoken to a couple of you all about this guidance individually, we will try to accomplish that via regular workshop meetings. So that's an example in which
yeah,
that's the
because some of our
case.
meetings have been light, and you wonder why not just throw one of those items on there.
That is the direction now.
briefly. I appreciate that, and I also would like for you to schedule that unfunded pension liability workshop.
No, that is in progress. We are simply aligning everybody's schedules, the
Okay.
internal parties, the external parties coming
Great.
together.
Thank
So
you.
we look forward to getting to that place because, of course, I regard that as an integral function of the upcoming proposed budget process.
It's really
So that would be productive as well for us.
okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe the workshop schedule should be put on the agenda and the commission can vote on it?
To be fair, I actually wanted to have special workshops, and Mr. Moore said, you can't do that to them. So to be fair.
That's right.
So.
And we can call them whenever you want, as long as we do it on a commission day. We call it a special workshop.
Yeah, I'll start at noon.
Oh, come on, you're.
We
public
are.
service.
I mean, some of us have to travel for work once
That's
in a while,
what
and
Zoom's all
we're
about.
bringing
Bring
our
your computer, go by Zoom. Nobody stops you.
And it's also staff though. We're interrupting their work day. You know, I just like to be as efficient as possible with our schedule. That's all I'm throwing out there. So we're starting later, so it means people come in. We don't do public comment during these workshops anyway, so they're not missing out on anything, right? I mean, that's my pitch.
Acknowledged.
Thank you.
Any other
Mayor.
comments?
No.
We are adjourned.
Oh, that was so nice of you.